Welcome to our live streamed board meeting that takes place on the first Saturday of every month. Happens to actually be the first today. Nice. I think these are supposed to be to move TogetherTec forward, but TogetherTec is the project of projects. Our projects are all doing okay. We're all doing okay. So unless other people are coming on board and bringing on like how we meta that, I don't know whether to focus on our projects like we do in a roundtable or whether to focus on TogetherTec. I really enjoyed our conversation last month on what we could do for marketing. And I find it both fascinating that people are obsessed with people with money in game B and wanting their money. And at the same time, don't understand one, why they wouldn't, like why George, whoever they think has money, isn't just handing it over to the masses. But also, like, it doesn't actually matter if they if we did the Dragon's Den and we figured out who the top one was and they didn't give any money, it actually doesn't matter. Like, one, then you can kind of say, okay, well, 1,000 of us has said this is the best thing to come out of game B, and if you're not willing to put any money on it, yeah, that's weird. But there are 1,000 of us who believe in this, so could we each put in $10? Could we, you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference of that. But I don't want to. What are your guys' thoughts, feelings? How do you want this hour to go? What are we going to enjoy the most?
Yeah, I think letting it just kind of flow based on our current needs. Yeah, if we have any thoughts on community, building community and the projects, or if we have any kind of needs and space in our own projects, I'm free on any of those processes. I could certainly give an update on my project. I have actually done some work, although I've been on vacation for the last week and a half, so I didn't do much. Yeah, and then so any topics in the community, like we could talk more about that Dragon's Den idea or anything else that's going on. Yeah, fine, Adriel. I don't know if you have any desires.
Sure. So it's actually been a pretty good week. The last week, early on in the week, I got somebody reached out through the Wiki Election website. They're in Texas. After a conversation with them, turns out they've talked to Bentley before. Their name was Usman. He's got a project called Javul, which is Javul, and it's a bit like a platform for the Meta project. It sounds like it's kind of trying to be a bit of like project task management and like dividing up the work and some form of like I guess getting workers paid, but also donations. So it sounded interesting. It's still fairly early days, and he doesn't seem to be wanting to show it off too much yet. He still has a bunch of work he wants to do, but it definitely sounded interesting. And then somebody that Jubilee had put me in touch with, like, I don't know, 2 years ago at this point, Daniel, had reached out to me because the program that I think there's a program offered by the government of Canada that's a bit like the program that Daniel used to get the beta version of Relish built, like where somebody either, just assigns work to or assigns work to for actual payment, where the one in Canada, actually the people who work on it will get paid. You could actually end up having multiple workers. There's multiple silos where you can get like help with marketing or help with front end or back end. So this weekend I'll be doing some work to get some of those projects submitted, which I found interesting that like with the common theme through a lot of the projects in Game B, that apparently the marketing silo is the one that goes first. It's like the one that's really the most in demand, which isn't terribly surprising because I think that's what all of our projects tend to need the most help with.
Yeah.
What do you mean by the marketing silo is the first to go? You mean it's
like, so it's the most popular. So how it works is the work available through the students, sort of they're arranged into silos for what sort of their specialty is, and then projects can submit, or I guess the companies or groups or whatever can submit what they need help with. And the marketing one is basically like it's the first one to get to 100%. Where like, okay, we have no more workers left with time to actually work on your stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just
No,
It's
that's
also
fair.
what we need to solve
was
for all of us, right? Is that marketing, that if we had enough people and we had enough funding, we'd have it. I think my project is going to get us there, but I don't know if anyone else is working on that more meta piece, because it's also, what's the word? Like parallel tangential. It's like stop concentrating on game B and focusing on the actual issues and focus on the what actually draws people in, what actually does get them there. So then they can decide what sense-making project works the best for them and support it, put the money in, put the time in, put the things in that need it to be successful. And whichever one of us is successful in gathering those people, are they then only for that, right? Are they then only for that one group? And I think the more we can meta that part of it to do what it sounds like this guy's doing. He also sent me an email saying that he talked to Bentley and talked to you, and he was going to hopefully be here today. And I was like, great, we'll see. And then he sent an email saying that he wasn't able to come today. So I don't know if we want to meet with him in between now and next month, because if this is supposed to be our board meeting, we're all doing it once a month, then we're not even doing a board meeting, you know.
I probably will.
Yeah, so I looked up Usman. Yeah, we've chatted a couple times back and forth over email, and I can't recall if we actually had a meeting. Yeah, he's definitely not far from me regionally. And it's interesting because he and y'all may have had the same experience. I hope he doesn't. I don't think he minds chatting through his idea a little bit because it's more promotion. But yeah, so it sounds like, Jubilee, you often talk about how we all kind of come in saying, oh, we know how to save the world. And then we get in there and two things happen. One thing, no one wants to join us because they're working on their own project. And we also kind of get a dose of reality. Our plan, when it hits reality, doesn't quite work out the way we hope, or at least requires more work than we've initially thought. So he's in that position where he's like, oh, I'd like to get with a group of people and start without an idea and maybe a goal. So really, he's kind of in that stage of wanting to do. I guess it would fit under solution raising, because I think he does have an idea of the problem he wants to solve, but he's not tied to a specific solution. But I was just kind of pointing out that I applaud his efforts, but I've done that now with this group, and then with the Canonical Debate Lab, and then actually a third group that's more game A. So I'm not kind of in the position where I want to rethink, do a solution from the beginning. I'm happy to help out, but it wouldn't be something that I would be able to dedicate a significant amount of time to, because I got these other things that I want to experiment on and come to a conclusion before I'm ready to jump back in from the beginning and start that iteration over again, which certainly will happen in the future.
Yeah, that's kind of the same position I'm in, of like, okay, I don't want to, unless they come through me and then I have that, or us, then I have that drive to want to see it through. But otherwise, I'm like, solution raising, I enjoy it because it's just the spark of an idea. The more people are like, great, then do it. I'm like, no, that's you do it if you want to do it. So the idea, I'm already on how we actually gather the 10,000 people and have more than enough money to create the $100,000 ideas that come out of that. And it's like the amount of people in the game B space that want to give other people homework. They want to be like, right, then fix it this way. It's like, no, that's not mine to fix then. That's yours to fix. But it's like that we keep trying to resolve the same problem again and again. The list of projects, the pieces of it. It's like, well, you need the right person at the right time with the right resources to be able to put that in. So they have to be a coder or have enough money to pay one to fulfill their vision, or you need a dedicated group of people who are willing to work together to find that out. And I think that's what Game B is in the process of doing, is like more and more people coming to what we've already come to, right? That everyone has a project, and those of us who already have projects and already have community don't have the capacity to necessarily meet with everyone who's coming in who wants to meet with us. But that's why there's a bunch of people who've already come in. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're talking to the people you see of as the people who are connected. Like, the amount of people who think they're like, you're connected. I'm like, who do you think I'm connected to? Like, all of my connections in game B are real connections. They're like, and I take them seriously. I wouldn't waste Bentley's time and be like, here, talk to this person, when I know you weren't going to offer each other anything. But if there's even a spark of like, well, that sounds like what Bentley Raider's working on, then putting you in touch and letting you get what you're meant to get out of it is the point. But the amount of people who are like, they can't see, we at least see the irony of like, I have my own project and I want you to work on mine, but I'm not, it's like, and I'm willing to help you with yours. I'm just not willing to let go of mine to work on yours. And I don't want anyone to do that either. Like, if mine doesn't call to you, then keep you, everything I do is also about keeping hold of what you have, right? Like, bring that on board. You don't need to let it go. And most people's aren't like that. It's like, even if they think they are, it's like.
And we're all happy to do a solution raising and kind of consult a bit, whatever skills or ideas we have, or if someone needs holes poked in their idea, we're happy to do that. So that's the type of kind of general community volunteering that I think we're all willing to do. One interesting thing about Usman's suggestion was he was actually going to do a survey of finding other websites. So his goal is to help people improve working together to improve government or anything else. So it sounds like he's tackling the kind of the community action thing, which is kind of what Adriel said. But what's interesting, though, he was suggesting that we look at a lot of the websites that are out there that do that, and then do kind of an analysis of what kind of features, how do we think they work, and then based on that analysis, kind of do the next iteration of that. I thought that was interesting because a lot of times people do kind of come in with a plan, but he is open to doing the research, which I think a lot of people do, because sometimes people will come in and they have an idea and it's like, well, I think I've heard of 3 different startups and I didn't even Google what you're suggesting. So maybe you should look, they haven't even kind of looked to see who's out there, either that they could work with or who would be potential competition. In Game B, we don't have so much competition because usually it's a business, but sometimes if there's a business, a Game A business doing it really well, there's other Game B aspects we could be focusing on to make best use of our time. But that was an interesting aspect that he was willing and suggesting doing an analysis of what's out there before just kind of jumping in and building things. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it sounded like he had actually hired somebody on Upwork to go and do a bunch of that sort of data collection, and it sounded like he had a big list of sites. So I mean,
wow,
it sounds like he's actually sort of got the calling that like we knew is necessary, but it wasn't speaking to any of us. Like we'd sort of dabbled in it, and there was the various bits and pieces. I built the NAC thing. There was the other site, but it wasn't like our thing. It was just we knew it was important. But yeah, so
that's key. Like we were like, well, this needs to be there so we can have these, but really we just want our projects. Whereas if that is your project, right? Like that's not just chicken before an egg. It's like your chicken, your egg. That's a completely different focus. So I did want to reiterate with Bentley, because you are somewhat using them interchangeably. And I think, do you mean a solution raising or a project raising? Because I think if he is truly open to a solution raising on this, that could be amazing. Because if it is a project like, what could 10,000 people who have projects or want to work on projects do with $100,000 that could be that project management piece, the customer relation piece, all of that? That could be a really powerful and enjoyable conversation for all of us. And if he's that's his egg and his chicken and he's willing to run with it, that's awesome. And you can use those ideas. Or if you mean a project raising where it's his focus and he makes the rules, right? He makes here's where I am and here's where I want the next piece to be. And both. We could do both.
Yeah, I think it's closer to the solution raising side because I think he's intentionally saying I've done a volunteer project and worked on it for 20 years of his own kind of design, and now he's saying I'm willing to give up that kind of control and have the design evolve while working with other people. So that sounds more on the solution side than the project side.
Mhm.
So because I think he kind of has. Well, I mean, I guess the solution's kind of half there, because he wants to use web technologies. Maybe that's not the solution for this. Maybe it's an old phone tree, right? But it sounds. I think it would be one or the other, and he is definitely looking for participants. I think if we went through the solution raising process and it didn't generate anyone in the Facebook group or the Game Bee community kind of joined him on that, then I think he would reiterate or iterate. Try and he doesn't want to go too far down the path till he has other people that are committed to solving that same problem, which I certainly understand. So maybe the better thing is for him to find one or two other people that are interested in the problem space that have availability, and then we do a solution raising, and then they can go out. We would help them, but they would go off and do it. Unless maybe the thing we could talk about is how to help him find people. Although I think he's doing a good job of reaching out to people and communicating. It's just you have to knock on a lot of doors for this sort of thing.
I think having people who, like us, have projects that they care about, that really this thing solves that problem for us, even if we're not wanting to work on it. Finding the people who this is their problem is a little more difficult, but possible. I just don't know if those are the same people who want to do the solution raising itself. They don't appear to be in my I thought everyone would have a solution raising, and turns out not the case. And not everyone can have one. Not everyone wants to have one. But having that, what am I trying to say? Like, if the four of us had a solution raising, that's enough people. That's more than enough people to come up with something in an hour. In an hour. However, what we could do is put it out to Game Bee projects or Game Bee and ask, like, both if we can name that problem better, because like a solution raising's on food or education, this one's on marketing. Like, what is, you know what I mean? Like, what is it on specifically for projects or projects, and then host it, and we can split out into groups. I think we all have understood what a solution raising is enough, even if we've only participated in one or two. And I, of course, participated way more than that like we could host 3 different ones and then come back together and see what we came up with and offer that piece of it. Like, so he could watch them all, and people who watch them could be like, yes, actually, that's the piece I want to get involved in. And I think if we, within the Game Bee project space, offered it as somewhat an egg, a chicken, like, it's like, this is if you're looking for a project that you want to get involved in, you don't want it to be a project that's already got some, like, this is how you create it from the ground up. And so I'm saying many things there. One is we could just host it, the 4 of us. One is we could host it with a bunch of people and split off and see if that happens. And then what point do we then put it out there? Or maybe we don't at all, of come on board and be actually, if one of these speaks to you, which one speaks to you? Or if these ones speak to you, if the meta speaks to you and there's 4 or 5 people to vote, pick which one out of what we brainstormed is the most powerful.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I think he wants the people that want to be involved in donating or volunteering in the time to do that solution raising, so that they'll be in. So I almost guess if it was just us and him, and we're not going to be volunteering in that project, then that might be taking the project down a path prematurely. So I think you're absolutely right. Phrasing that problem that he wants to solve with other people and getting that out there, saying, who wants to join me in tackling this problem, and you don't have a solution in mind, would, I think, be good. I think we'd be happy to share that on all of our social media. One other thought, though, is that I did point him towards openglobalmind.com, which actually really fits his description. It's a whole group of people trying to getting together and just constantly iterating projects to improve the world. Some of them are Game Bee players, and some probably have never heard of Game Bee, but they're a very action-oriented group, where Game Bee is more kind of philosophical. So yeah, he may just look at that and decide that he just needs to show up in those meetings and when he sees a project that kind of fits what he wants to do, then he could hop on that project doing the same thing, or be in those generative conversations where people are constantly kind of discussing what's the next thing, next experiment to try to improve the world. And a lot of that group is also about human coordination.
Human coordination. That somehow is the solution we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Which is coordination, which is hilarious, because even when it's something like food or shelter or clothing, the amount of like stuff that people bring to that in their head, right? Their story about that can change it and pivot it completely. Like food, are we talking restaurant food? Are we talking grow your own food? Are we like talking a menu? Human correlation. I even coordination. Coordination. I can't even read my own writing. We have a solution racing on that. Is a lot, right? It's like how to coordinate, but it's like how to find your people and work together in a way that works for you. It's like human coordination, but again, explaining that so that people come to that with some amount of, you don't need to be an expert. You're a human. You want to coordinate? That's all you need. How does it look like currently? What could it look like? What could we do with 10,000 of us, or 1,000 of us with projects?
Yeah, right now, not only do I have like 2 or 3 projects of my own, that I do know of like a dozen that I would like to work with if it wasn't that I wanted to finish the experiments I've already started, right? And if they don't show a lot of promise, then I'd be open to working on another project. But I have several that I just need to buckle down and focus on one of them, which I've hired someone to kind of help me with Gullybot. So, I guess in the next couple months, I should know if that experiment is showing promise and should be invested in some more, or whether I should move on to another project. So yeah, I guess that's where I would be with that one. Hey Joe, how's your project going? Have you spent much time? I know you started a new job 6 months ago or something. I don't know if you're still catching up or.
I've been working on sort of a more concrete prototype in Knack. They came out with a new builder it's been way easier to use and sort of connect things, and they improved their data structure. So I took the right around the time that I was thinking, like, I need like a proper, even if it doesn't have all the features, like actually sort of see, here's what the data would look like, here's the kind of information that you could see. Right around the time I was thinking about that, Jordan Peterson was all over the news. So I started to use him as sort of the first example of like, okay, let's look at some of the surrounding media, the content available, start to sort of figure out, like, can I find content that proves or disproves certain things that people say about him? And so I've been sort of building that out, and it's been going fairly well, because it's been like, you'll find a video. Julie sent me a pretty cool one where then it was like now trying to interrelate the content and then also trying to catalog what role each person has in it. And it's amazing how quickly the list of people expands, because it's like there's 3 or 4 videos, it's all the panelists involved and all of the people that host it, and then if they reference another video, it's the people who are involved in that one. And it's been good. That was sort of on the, I guess, general Conferati prototype. And then this week, things sort of actually kind of started to pick up with the hearing from Usman. Sounds like he might be interested in helping out a bit with like maybe getting a wiki online for it. And he talked about merging projects, which I'm not sure how would work, because projects seem quite different, but like he's interested in solving some of the problems, and I'm just not sure how his one solves those, as opposed to the project of projects, which is what Javel seems to do right now. And now with the I don't even know what to call it, the Canadian incubator type thing that I heard about this week, I have a bunch of work to do sort of this weekend to get some projects posted, to see if I can get people interested in helping. And I'll probably be posting like at least 3 or 4 different ones, from like the, hey, can you help me tighten up sort of the marketing, or not the marketing, the messaging, possibly helping with like the marketing and branding for Conferati. So I had that fairly sorted for Wiki Election, and then with the pivot to Conferati, it's been like this nebulous thing where I've been talking about it, but like it still doesn't have a website. It doesn't have a logo. It's not as concrete as Wiki Election was sort of starting to be, as far as like actually being its own thing. And so that's where I'm hoping to use this program to both sort of tighten up the messaging for everything, and then actually get the prototype of the platform starting to get built, so that I can actually start to build some of this stuff and get my own version of it and not use Knack for it.
Not to derail in any way what you were doing, but just while you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, that's not how I do things anymore at all. Like the idea of like coming up with a concept and then logo, website, like because I've tried that so many times and then it hasn't gone anywhere. It's like, that's like step 50. Like it's like first figure out the idea first. And I'm not saying don't do that with you. I'm not saying do that with yours. I'm saying, has anyone else noticed that piece of it? Like what they used to do as like business cards and name and email. I'm like, I can't have another email and another website or another Facebook group. It's like that step 30. I don't even know, just like further down.
You're absolutely right. So I have two thoughts on that. One is that's absolutely right, but also some of that's the more fun parts. So if I've got to volunteer and do a little bit of drudgery, sometimes designing a logo for me is fun, but it is a distraction. And technically, you should, the general advice should be put out a small test with just a temporary name and see if people are interested, rather than, buying a domain and setting it all up.
Totally. And that's why I've been focusing on the prototype, because I was sort of in the same thing where I was getting bogged down with the like trying to hash that out. And I'm like, it's not even anything yet. Like you have to build something first to show off to like, and so I've actually got kind of a start to the prototype. It's not that nice to look at, and like it's kind of clunky to navigate through the data, but I think it's something that I could start to show off that proves like, oh, okay, you can go to the page for the person and you can see like what organizations they're a part of and what their experience is and what content they've been a part of in what ways. You can go to the content and see like who's involved in it in what way, what content that content references. Like the video that Jubilee sent me was a person doing a review of like the kind of famous Jordan Peterson debate with Kathy Newman. And so it was like I had to then put both of those pieces of content, had one reference the other, and then that kind of starts to like surface some of the problems I have to solve with okay, but how is it going to reference it? It can't just link to it because that's not useful. Like it has to sort of start to catalog it and figure out what are all of the pieces of content that this content references, and then what are the ways that you have to be able to separate those. And then to your point, Bentley, it is fun. So it's kind of like the nerding out on like what does it look like, but also from like a positioning standpoint, I think it starts to help figure out like less from the logo and website and more like where does this fit? What's the starting talking point about it? Where with Wiki Election, it was fairly clear because it was more focused. Conferati is kind of too big. Like it's solving information, which like that's not a useful thing to tell people. So it's trying to sort of pick one narrow window, and it might end up being that Conferati is like the parent project that doesn't get talked about much, and it's all the ones underneath it that actually get sort of talked about, and that each one of those has branding, kind of like how the Alphabet company owns a bunch of the different Google companies, but nobody really knows or cares about Alphabet. They know Google and they know YouTube and they know all those. It might end up being something like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like the feature set you're focusing on right now is kind of the politician, or politician is the wrong word, but kind of the
like
place for people.
Figure.
Yeah, public figure. Not so much rating, but public figure information space.
Right.
Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, like sort of starting to have the intersection of people meets content and the ways to sort of catalog who's a part of it and what can we learn about that, and what do the trends show, right? Because like the thing that sort of started it all with Jordan Peterson was when he was the villain in Marvel against Red Skull. Somebody joined and Red Skull had a page that was like the 10 rules for life, and they're basically mocking Jordan Peterson with a Marvel villain. And then my Facebook feed was full of people calling him a Nazi and like blah blah blah. And I was like, I'll listen to some of his stuff. I'm not like, I don't hate him or love him. Like, he's interesting, but I don't really get either side's obsession. And so I was kind of like, I want to start to catalog it, to figure out like, can I see any information available that, you know, shows he's a Nazi? And so the first step was just some basic level of like, how can we start to catalog data? And then once I get a bit more, I may start engaging with some of those people like, hey, why, like, do you have any proof for that? Do you have any content that you would like to share? Because the end goal is to sort of say like, hey, here's the good stuff, here's the bad stuff, here's how people would sort of group those things together. Like the thing that sort of put him in the public eye was like sort of the talk around freedom of speech and trans rights and you know, and compelled speech, and you know, it's grown since then. But to start that kind of work through a less than ideal platform, which in this case is NAC, because it's not really made for this, but like it's kind of working. And sort of build that, like, just the data framework, and it has helped uncover some of the work that I need to do as I sort of see the data. I'm like, there's something there, but it's not even close to useful yet.
Is it available on the website somewhere so we can look at, or is it just in your private sandbox right now?
It's technically, oh, one sec, I've got it. It is kind of available because it's on the NAC. This is it there. Put it in that private chat. I want to take a look. It's part of the way that it's not quite ideal is that like, if, for example, I want to make a page for people, I have to sort of like build that page and build each element. But there's multiple ways that you could get to somebody's person page, where like you could start off from content and say, hey, who are the people involved in this content? And that could bring you to the person page. There's the organization and list where you could say who works at the organization. Oh, it's that person. And there's just a list of people. And in NAC, you sort of have to build that same page 3 times and keep it like, if you want the person page to look a certain way. So it's a lot of sort of duplication of work. And that's one of the areas where it's not really great for it, because I end up, you know, not quite building the exact same thing and then get to data the same way, and it looks slightly different. You can sort of see where that's headed in some of the information available, and some of it is like how to categorize somebody's involvement in media, where there's a like, are they the host, are they the guest, are they the speaker? Then I'm like, but how and when are those different, and do we need that level of separation?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I'm glad that I've sort of started working on that, because that did show like, I think it could end up being a useful prototype to like actually show people like, here's the sort of information that could be available, but in a much better, more useful way. And then also helped me figure out what I don't know yet.
And Jubilee, which of your projects is your focus right now?
Peer coaching and weaving are the two that are definitely because it's how we bring the people together, get us paid, get the projects paid. So that's definitely my focus. And my just allowing life to happen is a constant battle, just like allowing it to flow, including having the right discussions with the right people at the right time and just allowing that. But peer coaching, there's something emerging, something that's coming out that's like a because peer coaching doesn't quite get the essence of what it is that peer coaching does. And I think that that's good. I think that it draws in the people who are like, yeah, okay, I want to talk to other people and help solve our problems together. And so it brings in the right people at the right time. But I think a bunch of right people are understandably busy with other things. And so it's like, great, you just like we're like with this guy, great, he can focus on his chicken and egg. It's like, this is, and I say this about everything, but like it's everyone's chicken and egg, because it's about how do you improve your life so that you have more to give to your life, your family, your community, your projects, and how do we keep incrementally making our lives better while gathering the masses that can have enough money to collectively to create amazing projects, that we don't always have to do this chicken and egg marketing project CRM tools. Like most of these things exist already, but they're done for profit and they're all disconnected, or they're open source and not funded and they don't have great UX, and like all the problems we've talked about for so long. This is like, well, how do we focus on our health, our relationships, our time, and our resources so that we have more to give and are weaving ourselves together in a very invitationally authentic way, where there isn't, it's more, if we're disagreeing somewhere, how do we zoom out so we're in more agreement, and figuring out that piece of it, and finding out how to do the human coordination of like, how do we do the hosting sessions, and how do we get people to them and do the coordination while we're building up to a capacity where we can have tools that do that for us. And how do we live, like how do we also attend to them and have them be impactful in our lives and have it be a direct benefit right now. And that to me is a little bit my obsession right now with MVP, is which I think a lot of Game B projects are lacking. And up until right now, mine was too. Like, it's like that it needs to offer the people that it's going to solve the problem for later something right now. And for most of us, we can't do that, right? Because it's like, well, no, we need all the information. Like, imagine what you can do with all the information, amazing things. But what's that little piece of information that doesn't? And that's where I'm involved in the physics project to critique it. so because I learned a lot from mine about that, of like, you're not offering anybody anything right now. You're not offering Bill Gates something. You've got nothing to offer him, but you are obsessed with getting him on board, or you've got nothing to offer me. It's like, I'm not getting on my project. And so like, where to actually, and I feel like we are doing that with project of projects. What can we offer you right now? We're offering each other something, right? And the more that people are able to come on board and bring their expertise and bring their struggles, the more we're able to build on that. And so I don't know if I offered, and then solution raising itself, I was focused on pivoting so that, because it's not designed to be watched, it's designed to be participated in, but it's hard for me to get people to come participate in it in a way that works for me within my limitations. I was pivoting so that I was going to get like more YouTube personalities, more people who have more influence to come and talk about a topic that's important to them. And so I ended up following the flow in my life, and through the physics project, ended up scheduling a solution raising with Jordan Hall and Brandon Hayes on cancel culture. And it was a great conversation. It was exactly the conversation I was meant to have, but it wasn't a solution raising. Jordan showed up halfway through. It was only there for half an hour, missed the first half. And neither of I was like 10,000 people, $100,000. They're like, money corrupts things. Let's talk about it this way. I was like, sure. It was a great conversation, but it wasn't that. And because Jordan had to leave early, and it was this one time kind of encountering solution raising, he didn't really get a feel for it and the power of it. And I was hoping that would be the way that I would then get Daniel Schwachtenberger to come have one on sense making, and Brett and Heather to come have one on science. And so I don't even think he has a full understanding for me to even ask for that. I might ask for it from him for some point in time, but it was very eye-opening, but also like, I don't know if that's the Game B YouTube personalities or the avenue. It might be the more neurodivergent avenue, or the disability group who have a focus of their YouTube channel that this solves. Because quite frankly, like, Daniel already has a sense-making project. I don't know if he wants to come and have an hour conversation on what that could look like.
Right.
And that kind of thing, right? But anyway, so that's solution raising is like, I wonder what it will become. I don't know. I have a vision and it completely changes and alters it. But peer coaching and weaving is about gathering the people and just figuring out that next piece until we get to the people. So it's like, what can 1,000 people do? How do you improve your life in tiny groups? How do we have those tiny groups work together in a bigger group? How do we do a lot of the human coordination piece?
So is weaving peer coaching the same thing, or are they slightly different?
peer coaching is the 6-week course. It is, you get together with 6 people, around 6 people. It can be 4 to 8 people. We haven't tried it with more than 6 though. For a 6-week course on how do you improve your health, how do you improve your relationships, your time and your resources. We have one solution raising on that, and then you're introduced to weaving in the 6th week. And so in the 6th week, you're introduced to how do we make a living at this, and how do we bring together to get to that 1,000, right? This is just like a product. The peer coaching is the free entry-level product that improves your life right away. If you didn't get something out of the 6-week course that you want to come and be part of this, then it probably isn't for you anyway. And if you didn't, like, because you would have to get something by both helping other people and be helped. I find peer coaching very powerful, even though I did not create it to be powerful. I was like, oh yeah, this works. But experiencing it myself, weird magic shows up. But beyond that, I'm highly not coachable. If you tell me what to do, my body's like, opposite. But like watching both, if you have my exact problem, me offering you advice is my advice that I can listen to more myself. And it's more easy for me to access it for someone else because I don't have to do that work, right? It's like, oh, you can do this. I can't do that, but you can do that. And then even more so when 2 people are coaching each other, and I have a similar problem because I'm not the one being coached at, I can hear something more powerfully in that. And I think we're all kind of have aspects of that in us where we already know what's best for ourselves. We know what that little low-hanging fruit is that can get us a little bit better health, relationships, and hearing other people in the same boat, hearing other people both offer help, that human beings, the masses might be horrible. These 6 aren't, right? Like these people are here to help you all over the world. And the more we can give people access to that. And that's what I'm trying to do with peer coaching, is figure out that piece of how to give people the beautiful, better version of the world without it giving Kylie hives. Like without giving the other, like that sounds too optimistic, and too, it's like, I love it. I love that, like, this is how I don't want to do fakery and like I'm promising you something we're not going to deliver, and I'm telling you we're going to deliver world peace. I'm telling you we're going to deliver a world that works for everyone because you're empowered to create a world that works for you. And when we're all interconnected around the world and witnessing each other, and we have sense-making projects, we have all the things that all the Game Bee people want to create, we don't have wars. There's violence, but there isn't wars on that massive scale. Or we keep fixing it. I'm not saying exactly what's in my head is going to fix that, but when we're interconnected and we have solutions that can improve anything, we just keep improving it. So war might look completely different. Maybe it is just soccer. Maybe it is just basketball. Or anyway, so that's where my projects are at the moment.
Yeah, I watched the solution raising on cancel culture, and it was interesting to see how the mention of money seemed to trigger the other 2 participants. And I think you explained it and did it well, and I think they didn't hear you. So that was interesting. I'm still kind of flummoxed on how to position that in a certain way. I mean, sure, money is power, and power has its detracting factors, right? But anything else you put in the place of the money, whether it's time or resources or, it's still power, and it still has a potential for making things difficult, but you need it. You need something to fuel the change, whether it's human time, which takes money. And it was interesting. They seem to have the opinion that money is for paying people to do things they don't want to do. And I'm like, I think of money as, I mean, it's been used that way for millennia, to be clear. But the way we should be using it today is to feed people while they're doing things that they want to do. And I don't, I don't think we all should starve for doing the things we love and that benefit people just because it's not financially viable. Yeah. So,
yeah, and those are the masses I want to gather, right? Because there's not to say that Brandon and Jordan don't feel like we should feed everyone.
Right.
But at the same time, finding the people who are like, yes, I care more about you being your authentic self and that you make me comfortable. I care more about feeding people than that I get a bigger slice of the pie. It doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be 1 billion people feeling that way. It only needs to be 10,000 people. And really, that's doable. There's 10,000 people in game B who already feel that way. It's just they have other things to work on. So it's like, right, how to get them to realize this isn't a 40-hour-a-week project. You don't have to give up anything. Just come improve your life. That's all you have to do. Like, just come be part of an hour conversation. And if you want, also talk about the meta of that. How do we improve this? How do we improve the hosting? Because the basic is just you attend one and then you do one, right? You attend it, you do it, you attend it, you do it. So there's exponential growth from that. And every time you do it, you get paid in hosting by hosting. I don't know how to explain that. Like, showing up and doing peer coaching with other people gives you something right away, because you're getting coached as well. You're also figuring out how to improve those things. And like, the worst thing is like, sorry, my relationships are perfect. I don't have any way to improve them. My health is perfect. Like, I don't know. Most of mine are meta though. I'm like, I need the meta to improve it more within my capacity, but there's still little things to do.
Yeah. Like, often being a teacher, you learn a lot more, not just in the preparation for teaching somebody, but also in the interaction with that other person, hearing your ideas parroted back by a different mind that has different experiences. It's really valuable. I'm mentoring 2 startups right now. And I get a certain amount out of that as well.
Yeah, and I think that is the key. And like, that idea of paying people for things that they don't want to do. One of the biggest blessings in life is realizing that, although, like what you said about logos, you were like, I like that part. I'm like, oh God, I hate that part. And it's like, but I like the conversation. I like the spark, and that there's actually a way to let, like, if really what you wanted to do all day, every day was write logos, make logos and brainstorm that piece of it, that would be very valuable to everyone else who has projects starting and wants that, right? And the more we can tap into that and be like, what would you do for free? I don't care if you get paid for it or not. That's what you should be doing. And it's like, the more we can actually tap into that as a society, the less we're asking people to sacrifice to create game B, and the more we're asking people to, like, whatever the opposite of sacrifice is. Like, you get to make your life better while making everybody else's life better.
And the more we pay people, to do what they love to do, the more it will cost people to pay people to do what they don't want to do. By market forces, right? So the more we spend our money in these instances, the better it is for society. Although I think I do have a fear that there's not someone that loves to do everything that I want to exist in the world. So at some point, someone needs to kind of buckle down and do something because other people need it, even though it's not a pretty job, right?
I think as you build a system that sort of promotes people doing what they love, there's going to be people who don't know what they love, right? Like, if you came to 25-year-old me and asked them, like, I don't know what I want to do. Cool, go do the other stuff. Go, spend a year or 2 in each thing, and then at some point you're like, oh, I like this. This is cool. Okay, cool. Then either double down in that or keep dabbling in that and keep shopping around. And then it was doing jobs that, like, I didn't necessarily love or hate. It was just like a thing. I started to, like, see the trends. You're like, oh, okay, here's these common threads throughout these things that I've been doing. I can see the spots that I'd like to do and see the spots that I don't like to do. And as I get further along that, you really can't pay me to do something I don't want to do now.
Yeah, we're at that kind of privileged level.
Although, like, I am and I'm not. I have enough capacity. Like, I'm paid by the government to focus on my health, right? Like, I'm on disability. And so, although that's way below the poverty line, it's the ability to have more time freedom to a certain degree than most people have. And that other people don't have because they have to work, right? They have to work 40 hours a week. They have to pay a mortgage. They have to do other things. But when you tap into what do you like, you don't have to do it 40 hours a week. You don't have to quit your job to do it. It's like, can you find 5 minutes a day to do what you truly love? It doesn't need to be productive. It doesn't need to be, it's like, what ignites your soul, what makes you happy. And so, yes, there's a certain amount of like that's privilege, smacks of privilege, but it also doesn't. It's like, right, with where you are right now, no matter where you are, no matter where you live, what your health is, what your relationships are, there's some joy to carve out, some fulfillment to carve out. And encouraging that instead of giving everyone else homework, right? Like Jordan Hall really ought to give us money and figure out the shit for us. It's like, well, why? Why is it on him to do that? He's doing what he's meant to do. Why can't you do it? Why can't I do it? It's like, well, because I don't have millions of dollars. Right, neither do I. But we have a little bit of time. We have $5 a month. We have a small amount that collectively is much more powerful than one person putting it in. Anyway, so I think there are things coming together in Game B that are, and this is, I also kind of realize it's going to sound so egoic, but like part of my real belief in Game B isn't Game B, it's that I'm in Game B. And I don't mean that because I mean like literally you guys are in it. Like the people I'm connected to in Game B, I found through Game B. So that's a big piece of it. But also like this is where we choose to have that umbrella over us, right? Like although I'm not willing to join someone else's project, I've joined Game B. It's like I believe in that vision because it's not a one path. It's like you can be, do you want to work towards an omni-win anti-rivalist world? Then we're both Game B players. How do I help you? How do you help me? And not, no, how do you help me? And it's like that to me is the difference between the true like second tier Game B players. Like, can you see that piece that we can see? And that doesn't mean you're bad if you can't, but like, oh, you have the solution, do you? Everyone just has to come on board yours. Well, then let's hear it. Is it enticing now? No, we just need 1 billion people to do it. Yep, that would be great, wouldn't it? If 1 billion people did basically anything, we'd save it. But it's like, what's going to get them to do that? And that's where I'm trying to figure out how to like market peer coaching so that they can truly see what it is. I don't want to lie to people, but it's like, it's magic. Like, it really truly is. And it's like, but it's only called peer coaching, which doesn't have the like magic sound to it. It's like, come experience it. Magic happens. And then the more people do that, like there's something, and whether peer coaching is the thing that does it, there's something to tap into that's way stronger than dopamine, way stronger than, it's like what Facebook and Twitter are trying to tap into, that like, oh, people like me. Oh, this, but like in a really deep level, how do we help people find their people? How do we help people get that spark of creativity and actually put it towards something? How do we help people find what they love to do and do it for the greatest impact of themselves and everybody else without needing to get a profit off of it, without needing to do that piece? Because that's the piece. It's like, I think was it Daniel's podcast with Jim, maybe, or talking about the heat of like all of the energy that's lost is heat in the conflict, right? And it's like, there's a power in the conflict to me that I don't want to get rid of, and I like want to use it, but the more that it's like us versus them instead of like, me versus you, and it only ever has to be on a one-to-one level, and how do we learn and grow from it, even if we are parts of different groups that are at war with each other? How do we actually use that energy for the good of both of our groups and our good without, it's like over in argument and in fight, then we're not gonna get there. That was one of the things that did come out of the Brandon Hayes and Jordan that Brandon offered, was like the idea that we're always either in cooperation, conflict, or separation. Those are our 3 options. Are we in conflict? Are we in cooperation? Or are we separating? It's like, yeah, that's pretty clear. Like if we're in conflict, are we going to separate and not have TogetherTec anymore? Or is it going to be something to move it forward to be further in cooperation? Because ignoring conflict doesn't work. Like, we're just not, because we don't do conflict here. Like, but we also don't. I don't think we've been in conflict, but it's allowed, so it's.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, the little conflict we've had has been generative, so it doesn't feel as conflicting. But we're not. Oh, we're also not in a situation where we feel like we're fighting over finite resources, which is generally where that kind of conflict comes about. So we're kind of lucky in that case. Although, you know, the end result is we are kind of all going different directions, so we're not able to multiply our energy expenditure by having 2 people, and it goes further that way. And that's the problem we're all trying to kind of work on a little bit is, finding common goals, which is even more than just coordination, but choosing a common goal that's specific enough. Because I'm working with lots of people that we have we're tackling common problems, but the path is completely different. And so we can help each other a little bit, but it's not the same as two people focusing on one idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something in like that heat that when anything in the world, when it generates energy, generates heat, and that's lost. But you also can capture the heat. You can do something with that heat that's useful. I mean, one of the least, efficient and therefore most efficient is a hot water kettle. Because it's like if you dissipate in heat, all it does is concentrate into heat and it heats the water up really good. Because it's inefficient, which makes it, you know what I mean, efficient. It's like there's, I think, ways to do that, which is what I'm hoping Game Bee is doing, what I'm hoping we're doing of like, okay, if this is where we are, if we are projects and we're not willing to let go of ours, how do we create that into something? If we're individuals who do want to look out for our own self-interest, but also care about other people, how do we focus that into something that's generative? And I think there is how each of us best gives our gifts to the world. And a lot of times right now that's solo. And it's like, oh, I came up with this idea and I don't know how to communicate it, but come on board my idea. It's like, well, that doesn't work. It's like when we're able to generate it together, when we're able to say, like, this is what Bentley needs. And it's not Bentley's the CEO and here's the workers on Bentley's project. It might be that here's 1,000 people with projects and we're all helping each other because you get to create logos for everybody. You know what I mean? Like you're like, yeah, cool. That's
stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm like, you want to have a conversation where I get to break your project? Yes, please. Like I can do that all day. Just tell me when it's too much. Tell me when you've had enough. Right, and they're not very good at that. I'm like, I can stop. Nobody wants to say yes, stop. So I'm figuring that level out. Ooh, we're getting antagonism back. I'll stop.
Yeah. Well, we're probably at the end of our hour.
Mm-hmm. We are at the end of our hour. Anyone want to give closing statements? Are we going to have that solution raising or reach out to him, try and do it at this time on one of the weeks in between? If yes, who wants to be part of it?
I could probably join if someone schedules it.
Yeah, I'd be a part of it. I mean, I'll probably have like another meeting with him outside of that, but I would also definitely be interested in a solution raising on human coordination.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. I was just laughing. Like, you're going to meet with him outside of this? All meetings have to be within this. You're not allowed to go meet with other people.
There is only TogetherTec. It's right in the name.
Yeah. Although it'd be interesting to find out whether he finds that valuable or if he wants to wait till he has a group of people that will then take the vision on rather than starting a vision without them participating in the initial thing. So it may not be what he's looking for.
I think there is a bit of that, and I think it's also like he actually wants the thing itself to be a bit better before he talks about it. Like when I kept inviting him on, that was sort of the like thing that he wasn't too comfortable with. Like he didn't really feel like it was sort of worth sharing. He's like, I just have to iron out this and that. I'm like, have you seen us talking about our projects? Our stuff's not that ironed out.
Which is, the one thing I hope we invite people to do is like, because you can't perfect it and then put it out in the world. It's not perfect enough for anyone, including you, ever. So like put it out, break it, fix it, break it, fix it on repeat until it gets somewhere, or it doesn't and someone else's does because of that interaction.
Yeah, if you're not embarrassed by your first release, you waited too late. Okay.
Amen to that.
Okay, great.
All right, awesome. Do you want to end the thing?
Sure.